I think the message is the one that I've learned, which is self-love. Learn to love yourself first. I know it's not easy, but that's the starting point. Once you start to learn to love yourself more, suddenly you'll find that you've got a lot more faith in yourself and your abilities in the world, and you're able to give love back to others. So self-love. I think that's what they gave me, because I'd got none of that before. I was just like really beating myself up far too badly, because I was struggling in the world.
The thing about self-love is, because we are love, all we have to do is stop criticizing ourselves and we'll love ourselves more. It's like, exactly. It's not, we don't even have to actively like, I love me, I love me, I love me. We just have to stop the criticism,
You got to accentuate the positive. I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not this fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. So great to be back. As you know, I've taken a few weeks hiatus from the show up here in the beautiful northern New South Wales, enjoying the sun in winter, Australia. It's been so beautiful. But I have another fascinating man to introduce you to today. His name is David Ditchfield. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, Karen. Thank you very much. Great to be here.
David's all the way over in the UK. Well, for me, it's a long way. For people watching this that are in the UK or listening to this in the UK, it's not so far for you guys, but for people in the States, it's a bit of a plane trip. So it's night here in Australia and morning in the UK, but it's on the same day.
It's morning, and we're the opposite way around. We're in summer, but it feels like winter because it's raining. There you go.
Maybe nothing
That's
unusual.
the UK for you.
Nothing unusual for the UK. Okay, so David has an extraordinary story to share with us today, and I'm going to quiz him as usual, but I'm just going to read out his bio. Have a listen to this. David Ditchfield is an artist, composer, near-death experiencer, and author who wants to use his NDE to make a positive difference to people's lives. David had a freak accident a few years back in which he slipped between the train and the tracks and was dragged under a speeding train for quite some time. As the surgeons fought to save his life, he had a profound near-death experience and journeyed to what he believes is the afterlife. When he woke from this experience in hospital, he found he had acquired astounding new abilities which, to this day, he still cannot explain. The first was enhanced ability to paint. After his NDE, David felt compelled to produce dramatic and rich images of things that he saw in the afterlife, painting so vivid and real that it was as if he had taken an HD camera with him to visually capture what most NDEers can only describe using words, which we'll have a look at some of the paintings. Then, even more surprisingly, he started writing classical music, composing full-scale symphonies and rhapsodies. This newfound gift was all the more astounding as David, a former punk rock pop guitarist, has never received any training in classical music and never composed music like this before he had his NDE. In fact, to this day, he cannot read or write a single note of musical notation. So you just picked up the guitar and played it by ear, right? When you were doing the punk rock thing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I was self-taught.
Yeah. Amazing. We'll get into this. So you debuted the symphony called The Divine Light, which expresses what you felt during your NDE. The symphony was premiered at a sellout concert and received a standing ovation from the audience.
I know, mad, isn't it? It's crazy. It's incredible, but it sold out 2 weeks in advance, which was kind of like a first for this orchestra. So I was really excited.
Yeah, especially
it's almost like. Sorry?
Well, especially a not known composer.
Yeah, I know. And that, I think at that point I knew that I was getting help from somewhere else. I was, you know, it was almost like that piece of music was meant to get out there to a lot of people. And I felt that vibration, as it were, as the momentum was picking up. I mean, it started because the orchestra said to me, look, you know, we normally like to do something in the local press. You okay to talk to them? I said, yeah, of course, you know. So I spoke to one local paper, and they were just so blown away with the story that other local papers started picking up on it. Then it started to not roller coaster, but it started to roll over into like, you know, BBC TV wanted to interview me and do a piece. And I think that's what really got people interested, you know. And then it went international press, you know. So it really just kind of like, I was just thinking all the way along, wow, yes.
Yeah, it's like
got
you're
my
just,
guides behind me. They want to get this out there. So that was it.
the momentum. It's like you're in a boat just floating downstream and the current's taking you where you need to go, right? It's just like,
Well put, yes.
how many years ago was that?
Well, that was in 2008. Yeah,
2008. Right,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so since then you've composed and have been commissioned to compose further classical works, which have also premiered to sell-out performances and has completed more than 30 paintings and a number of commissioned artworks. David's NDE memoir, it's coming, Shine On, it's called, will be released next year, 2020, in the spring of 2020, your spring, my autumn. And Dr. Raymond Moody Jr., best-selling author of Life After Death, describes that he's obviously had a bit of a read of it as one of the most profound, gripping accounts of a near-death experience that I have read, he says. And I say that having interviewed since 1965 thousands of people who describe such experiences. Now, that's a bit of a plug for the book, I've got to say.
Oh, it's incredible. You know, we could never have dreamt it. You know, it's you know, a year ago, just the actual hope of chance of maybe just kind of, you know, meeting Raymond Moody one day would have been fantastic, you know, along the way. But yeah, so to have him actually pick up the book and read it and just be so, you know, he was just really blown away by it. And so, you know, his manager contacted us and said, Raymond's really enjoying the book. And we went, wow. So yeah, so he's offered to write a foreword for us, which is brilliant, you know. And you know, we're very proud, and we're very honoured. So that's great. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get into the drama of the thing, because it was quite, you were just stepping like off the platform into the, you describe what happened.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened.
Tell me tell us what happened.
Yeah, fine. I was seeing a friend of mine off at the railway station. She was returning to London, and I was just helped her with her bags onto the carriage, and then gave her a hug and a kiss goodbye. And then as I stepped off, I was wearing a coat that got caught in the doors, because it was like sort of winter time then. It was a freezing cold day, and my coat got trapped, and I couldn't release it. It was like and I was tugging away at this coat. It was right down in the bottom of the end of it, and I thought, this is not going to come loose. And I could hear the alarms going off. I could hear, you know, I thought the engines were revving. I thought it's going to get moving soon, you know. So I tried everything. I tried banging on the glass, and I tried shouting out for help, but there was no guard around at that point, you know. And then also, you know, the buttons open and close, they didn't work. Nothing happened. So the train started to pull off, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to go with this. There's no way I'm going to be able to release it. And it's picked up a lot of pace, and then I knew I was going to lose my footing eventually, which I did. And I got pulled under in between the space of the platform and the actual train as it was going at high speed. And obviously at that point, I just thought, this is it. I'm going to die. I couldn't imagine that I would have survived it. And it's interesting because when I look back at it, at the time, it felt like it took minutes for the whole thing to happen. I actually felt in my mind that I could rationalize what was going on. You know, I was thinking, right, this odd thought came into my head, which was to totally relax, because I remember I'd seen this article in the papers about a week before about a young baby being thrown from a third floor apartment block that was on fire, and it survived without any injuries, because they said that babies are so relaxed that unlike us as adults, we tense up, you know. So that's what I did. I relaxed, and anyhow, I got pulled under, and then that was pretty nightmarish, obviously, to say the least. You know, to go in there, it was like being thrown into a washing machine at full rinse, you know. And it was but it was very dark and sort of, you know. I remember all the smell of all the oil and everything, and just the sound of the wheels screeching against the metal, and it was hell, you know. And it was interesting because I got this rational thought going on of survival, basically, a survival thought. And I just thought to myself, I remember the hearing like this rip, you know, as I went down, and then as I got tossed around underneath the train, I was lying there, and the train was still going above my head, and I thought, right, just lie down. I thought of Indiana Jones and 007 films, you know, and I just thought, think of that, lie down flat like he did, you know.
Right.
That's what I did. I just laid down because I thought some undercarriage could just come and whack me, and that would be it. But it didn't do. So the train rolled on eventually, and that was a most, you know, profound moment. Was going from all that darkness and all that noise and hell to like this kind of like going into silence, and then just daylight suddenly reappearing again. And I just kind of like tried to roll over, and I looked up and saw this beautiful blue sky, and that feeling of surviving that was just like really tremendous, you know. And it was like just seeing that blue sky made me feel really like, wow, isn't nature beautiful? Yeah, because it was great to be alive, obviously, at that point. Yeah. So yeah.
So you're obviously in a platform inside, like an underground. Were you outside?
No, it was an overground. Yeah, it was an overground station.
Oh, it was an overground station.
Yeah, so I was lay on the track, and the platform's, you know, probably about sort of, you know, 4 or 5 foot high, I guess, you know.
And the train took you and dragged you, and then it obviously what happened? Did it rip? Like, how did you get out from under the train? How did your body get out from under the train?
Well, all I remember is, as I say, is hearing this rip, which I reckon could have been either been my coat or it might have been my arm. My left arm got severed, but then it was just, as I say, it was just being tossed around and just thrown all over the place like a rag doll, basically, you know. And then I was obviously thrown into a place that was safe as the train kept rolling and above me. So I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but that's pretty much where I was. You know, I was just thrown into a safe place underneath the train.
So when you woke up and saw the daylight, were you still on Earth? Like, were you still in your body?
Oh yeah, I didn't actually black out, by the way. I was conscious throughout the whole thing. So it was just, yeah, I knew I was still on Earth. Yeah, I didn't actually have my near-death experience until later when I arrived in
the hospital.
Yeah. So right. You know, the paramedics came and got me off the track pretty quick. Actually, they were there because they were nearby. So they came and took me. I mean, it was quite a funny thing. I remember at the time I just bought myself these new Armani jeans that day. I remember the paramedics coming up saying, "We're going to have to cut these open, sir." I was going, no, my legs are fine. You know, I thought, don't cut these. It's that funny thing, isn't it, of shock where you just kind of feel like, you know, no, don't do that. You know? But of course they did. And so they got me in an ambulance and sped me down the motorway and got me into A&E. And I was in there, and I was, as I say, I was losing a lot of blood because my left arm had been severed. So at that point, they pulled my family in. When my family arrived, they felt like they got there really quick, you know, even though they had a way to come. And I remember the consultants and the doctors were all running around, and they were obviously clearly trying to save me at that point. You could hear those voices of urgency. And I remember my sister saying to me afterwards, she said that it's just like there was a lot of blood, so it was this. I think at that point, I realised, you know, that was a stage when I was going to go into my near-death experience because of losing that amount of blood. Because I think I was very close to death at that point, you know.
So, when you were, this is just my curious mind, I really don't need all these details, but when
Sorry.
you were thinking, oh, I should relax and I should do like all that logical thinking while all the drama was happening, were you in any pain or was there just no pain at that point?
Yeah, I was in agony. I was in
Agony. Oh, okay. So you felt all
yeah,
the pain.
yeah. I
Okay.
was absolute pain, and I remember, the consultant who was going on to be my one-to-one consultant, who was a fantastic guy. He said to me, "Look, your family are here. Would you like to see any of them?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How many can you handle?" I said, "Just send them all through." I was just, yeah. So they came in, and I remember them coming up and chatting to me and seeing me, and seeing the look on my mother's face, I'll never forget, was just awful. Obviously to see her son in this state. And in all fairness, a few of them actually thought that I hadn't survived it.
Right.
Especially my friend Anna, who I'd been seeing off, because she'd had to watch it through the window of the carriage, and she just saw me.
I was thinking about her, thinking, poor. Well, I didn't know her name, but the person that you were seeing off. All right, so you get to the hospital and you're obviously going for an operation. Did you leave your body during the operation?
Yeah, well, I was still in the emergency department, and I was concerned about Anna, and I needed to speak to her. So I said, "Can I speak to her?" And so she came over, and it was at the point she came over and spoke to me that I left my body and went into my near-death experience.
Wow.
So
Basically, to her, you've just kind of gone hi and then like blacked out and like left your body.
Well, yeah, I remember speaking to her and saying, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" And then I remember just shaking her head in disbelief, that I was alive, because,
You were asking her if she was okay.
Yeah, well, I was concerned for her because I knew she must have been through an absolute awful thing,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
she told me afterwards that she thought that she watched me go under. She ran to the window, and interestingly enough, going back to me saying how I relaxed, she said it was really odd, but you just kind of seemed to roll under with such grace. She said, "Do you mind me saying that?" I said, "No, because you're bang on the money, So yeah, and so she told me that she'd as the train, she was running around frantically trying to find a guard to stop the train, which eventually she did, and they stopped in the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere. And believing that I was dead, she turned around to the carriage and said, "Would everybody mind if we said a prayer?" And they said, "Yeah." And then this lady stepped forward who said, "Look, I'm a Christian. Would you like me to take the prayers for you?" She said, "Yeah." So she said all these commuters who'd been sat there with their laptops and newspapers suddenly just put them all down and went into prayers for me. And I really believe in the power of prayer now because I felt those prayers. I really did.
I can feel them just hearing you talk about it. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
I'm a firm believer in prayer. So anybody who's going through hard times now, I really put a lot into praying myself, and getting others to join in if they can. But so anyway, so it was that back to Anna. So yeah, so I'm chatting away to her, checking she's okay, and then I just went from all that pain and agony and all that noise. It was like the noise was on overload. To a really calm place. It was. At first, I thought I was in kind of like a darkened room, and I felt like in a comfortable room. I was so dark, it just felt like a really comfortable space. And I remember seeing these colours pulsating around me, like ambers and oranges and golds and yellows and greens. And I thought, oh, this is really a lovely, calm place. I looked up at my feet and I could see this being, this like an androgynous being, neither male or female, stood at my feet. Just stood there, kind of like calmly smiling at me. And I just thought, who is this? Who is this being? But part of me just felt like I'd known him or her since the beginning of time and beyond. Maybe, I knew.
Yeah.
And I felt very comforted. I felt very comforted, and I believed right at that point that I'd passed on. That this was the next stage, afterlife. And I thought, well, this is where we go. So this is it. So this is where we end up. And I thought, well, I'm quite happy with this. This is good, And the next thing I realised was there were two other beings either side of me, and they were kind of female form, I would say, and they were, and they both had their hands kind of like sort of gently going over my body, healing me, almost like it's similar to sort of Reiki healing sort of process, I guess I'd describe it to. And and I just felt this vibration of love coming from all three of these beings. And it was like, and I say a vibration of love because I felt it was like almost pulsating through my physical being, you know. It's just a beautiful thing.
I just had a question which I asked my mob and they just answered, because it's interesting when people say, you know, they were healing my body, because obviously you're not in your body, you're in your astral body, you're in another body, you're in some people call it spiritual body, astral body. And so these beings were putting their hands over your astral body, right? Not your physical body. So I just said, but they weren't touching his physical body, they were touching his astral body. And they said to me, oh, well, your astral body is the replication of your physical body, and it actually healing manifests first in the astral before it manifests in the physical. And I just went, oh, interesting. Okay. Okay.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually, because I remember lifting my head at that point and looking down to see how bad my body looked, and everything was healed. There was my left arm was okay, and it wasn't, you know, badly scarred or anything, you know. And the most interesting thing was that I remember seeing that as I looked down on my body, that I was covered in this lovely cloth. It was like a sort of a blue sort of satin sort of silky sort of cloth, which was so comfortable. It was kind of like really cooling on me, but kept me warm at the same time. So what you've just said there, that makes an awful lot of sense.
Well, it's interesting because often people, when they talk about NDEs, you know, they leave their, you know, smashed up body, car accidents and all sorts of things, and they're in their astral form, but they're perfectly fine. You know, they're not expecting to see a broken body. They kind of expect to just be normal. You know, they still expect to be their body, which I find interesting because, you know, when we exit the matrix, exit stage left, we don't necessarily have to retain this form, if you like.
Sure.
And that's something I wanted to ask you about, the beings. You described them as beings, especially the first one you saw. So if you were to describe it visually, what were you looking at when you said it looked androgynous? Did it look like a human being? Did it look like a light being?
Yeah, it looked like a human being.
Right.
And to the point that it was wearing like a dark shirt, almost like a dark t-shirt, you know. So it wasn't kind of wearing some kind of like robe or anything like that, or anything that was not sort of familiar to me. It was almost like quite sort of, you know, day to day sort of looking. But the being itself was not day to day looking. It was quite special. There was something unusual about it, even though it was of human form. It kind of wasn't. You know, I knew that this was a special being that was stood at my feet. I knew straight away that it was there to care for me, you know, and watch over me. Did it feel
angelic? Did it feel?
Oh yeah. It felt angelic, you know, without the wings. There were no wings in place, but it felt totally angelic.
Did this being introduce itself to you and say, "Hello, I am, and I'm here to like help you"? Blah blah blah.
Do you know what? It didn't. There was no conversation actually going on between us, but it was all very much mental. I was like picking up an awful lot just from that being, just from its face expressions. When I say that the being was smiling, that it wasn't actually physically smiling, but it was just kind of like, you know, when somebody's smiling with their eyes, where you can tell that they're thinking happy thoughts inside. That's what it was, and there was this familiarity. I just thought, you know, it's like, where do I know you from? I know you. You know, you sometimes you bump into somebody at a party, and you start chatting to a complete stranger, and you feel like you've known that person for a long, long time, and you connect straight away, and they say it back to you. It was like that, and you know, but the love that I felt.
Was it you?
Yeah, the love that I felt that was coming from this being was all the kind of feelings of love that you have, say from your parents, from your lover, from your pet animal, or what have you. It was all encompassed into one, and it was so powerful, this love, that I just thought, wow, this is the most intense form of love that I've ever had in my life, and it was just wonderful. I just felt bathed in it. It was wonderful.
Can you recreate that sensation now that you're back in your body?
Interesting. The closest I've come to it is I came across spiritual healing after my accident, because I was in search of some not some answers, but of other people, I'm back on Earth, as it were, who I could talk to and share what had happened with me openly, without people going, "Oh, okay," And so I'd stumbled across this spiritualist church, which I'd been to actually some time before my accident. So I was living in London, and I came up to visit my sister, who lives in the same town where I had the accident. And I was on the train, and I met these people who were going. They said they were going off to see a medium, and at that point, I'd never really known much about mediumship or anything, And they said, "Would you like to come along?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come." So I went just to find out, curiosity, as it were. And I was sat there, and it was actually taking place in the spiritualist church that I discovered later. And there was a medium she was brilliant. She was just like pacing backwards and forwards, and she was talking to her guides, and she was going, yeah, I get that. 'Cause he was like this, very animated. And she was like getting a lot of people and talking about connecting with their lost family members, grandparents and stuff like that, and stuff, association and what have you, and saying your grandfather's with you and making them feel comforted, And I'd not gone there looking for a message from anyone, but she suddenly turned around at one point and she said, "Gentleman in the blue sweater," she said, your life's about to change." And I went, "Oh, right." I said, "In what way?" And she said, "They're not telling me. They're just saying your life is about to change, and it's just be ready for it because it's going to be big." And I thought, great. And I thought it was just going to be like, I'm going to have this kind of like whole new career, or my relationship's going to take off, and stuff. But it wasn't. It was. I'm looking back on it now. That she obviously, the guides could preempt what was about to happen to me. That I was going to have this life-changing accident and near-death experience.
Oh, right. She said that before you had your accident.
Yeah,
right.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
No wonder she didn't give you details. Oh, you're about to be thrown under a chain, die.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't giving her
yeah.
that. She had no idea.
No,
But,
yeah. They wouldn't. All right, so let's get back to the healing. So you're in your astral body. You've got two beings either side, and you're on what is like a table, like a hospital table, are you, with a blue silk sort of sheet over you, and they're putting their energy through your body, right? And then your astral body is healing. Is that what happened?
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just what I meant to say earlier was that I wasn't actually on a hospital table, as it were. What was odd was I was lying on this like huge kind of rock. It was almost like it was like slate. It was like lying on a big piece of slate.
Right.
And again, that was odd because I felt very comfortable on lying on that. You wouldn't want to lie on a piece of slate normally, would you? But it just felt really comforting, and so so that's where I was at that point. So carry on. Sorry, I thought that I'd just.
Oh, well, you carry on, please. Tell us more of the story and what happens next. So you're lying on.
Yeah, so I'm lying there, and I'm lying on this big piece of slate, and I just kind of put my head back again and just enjoyed all this healing and power and love that was just coming through me. And then I suddenly felt the sensation coming towards me, and I thought it was almost like the energy was starting to increase by tenfold. And I kind of lifted my head slightly. I looked ahead of my feet, and I saw what I describe as this kind of like ton of white pure light, and that was like kind of swirling around. There was like almost like flames of fire, like sort of yellows and reds and whites, all just kind of slowly sort of rotating around this pure white light. And this white light was just the energy coming from that light was just so powerful and overwhelming, and seemed to be getting closer to me, or I was getting closer to it. And I just felt absolutely like, this definitely is. I've definitely passed on, and I looked at that light, and I just thought to myself, this is the energy of life itself, of creation. All these thoughts were going on. I wasn't being told this. It was like I was getting all these equations, and I just thought, this is God. You know, this is not this guy with a beard up in the sky. You know, like in the Michelangelo paintings. This is the power and the energy of God. And so I felt very privileged, and I felt very, very excited about it. Yeah. So I lay my head back down, and I remember looking up, and then there was 3 grids of light, which were kind of like high above my head. And I remember looking into those grids of light, and the same thing, like normally you wouldn't be able to look into such intense light, you know, on Earth, whether it would be the sun or electric lighting or whatever, you know, it'd be too much to deal with. But my eyes could handle it, and not only that, I was drawn to looking into this light because it was just so beautiful, and it felt so healing and powerful, you know, that I just didn't want to let go of that. So yeah. So
and so you're looking into the light, and what happens next?
I'm lying there, and then I suddenly started thinking about my family, which is odd because up until that stage, throughout my life, I'd always been suffered from anxiety, and guilt was always my middle name. You know, it was just like normally I'd be thinking, you know, oh my goodness, my family, oh my gosh, you know, how are they? What's good? But I didn't. I calmly thought to myself, I better check my family out and see how they're doing, you know, and because I knew that what kind of state they were in, where I'd left them back in the hospital. So I kind of rolled over to my left-hand side, thinking that I would look down to see them down back in the hospital. And so I just kind of slowly rolled over, and I remember looking at, that's when I could see right over the edge of this huge piece of slate. And instead of seeing my family down in the hospital, what I did see then was this like incredible, beautiful sight. It was like, the way I could describe it would be, it was like a waterfall of stars, which were like cascading just down, and the beautiful energy and flow of light that was coming from these stars was quite immense, and it was just flowing down. And again, the hugeness of it was just something like I'd never, you know, experienced in my life. And it was just it was like looking down as the stars cascaded down, then they seemed to disappear into another universe altogether, and then into another galaxy. It was just like, it was infinite. Wow. So this was like an infinite, deep, sort of beautiful waterfall. And I just thought, right, I'm certainly not in a small darkened room at all. You know, I felt like I was floating around in the middle of the universe. You know?
The universe, yeah. I'm here floating around on this plinth, you know.
Yeah, well, well, it's interesting because it's since then, you know, whenever there's a TV documentary on about astronauts going into space or what have you, you know, or I'm on there straight away. I'm on it. I never used to be interested in that at all, but I got to watch those programs because I want to hear what they have to say, and I want to see images of space and from, you know, from their crafts, and hear what they have to say. And do you know what's really fascinating is, like, first of all, when I see some of the images from space, I just, yeah, that's what I saw. In fact, only recently, they started taking some photographs on, I think it's Hubble, is it? The big, and they were taken of new parts, new galaxies that they'd never been able to photograph before. And I promise you, I looked at them and I was aghast. I was going, wow, that's what I saw, because I saw, you know, sort of stars that were just kind of in red clouds and stuff, which I put into my paintings, you know, and they looked just like that. And I thought, that's incredible, that's remarkable. I'd seen that, you know, before these images had come through from NASA, you know, and also, what's also fascinating is the astronauts. You may know this, but quite a few of the astronauts, when they come back, I mean, they're scientists, and while they were out in space, standing on the moon, gazing back at Earth, they converted to their thoughts to a lot more on a much more spiritual level. They were much more connected with their spiritual. Yeah, which is lovely. And I'm not surprised.
Some of them, when they looked out at that tiny blue dot hovering in space, they said everything, all that drama, everything we go through is happening on that tiny blue dot. And from this perspective, it seems so insignificant,
I know, yeah.
All the wars, all the rock stars, the movies, the drama, the fighting, the families, all of it, it's happening on that tiny blue dot. Yeah, I've heard that many times, and I often think, that perspective. I've interviewed a guy called Garnet, who spiritual guide takes him out in his astral body and flies him around the universe, and he'll take him above Earth, and they'll turn around and they'll look back from your kind of NDE's perspective, like he's out there in the universe hovering in his astral body, looking back at Earth, and sort of having that perspective that an astronaut would have.
Exactly.
And just marveling at the beauty of this beautiful blue planet that we live on. That our bodies live on anyway. I don't think that our soul lives on it. Okay, so what happens? There's just so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. What happens there? Because I want to go through the paintings and I want to talk about the after effects.
Sure.
How long were you there? Like, I know there's no time and space where you are, but what did it feel like? What did it feel like to you?
It sounds like a cliche, but time was kind of irrelevant. I guess, so I couldn't irrelevant. Yeah, I thought that's a phrase. And so I wish it had been longer. In all fairness, I was when I did actually come back, it was like, it was a massive shock. It literally was like crashing back through space, and back to Earth. And I remember opening my eyes again back in the hospital, and looking up and seeing my friend Anna was still staring at me, but I remember looking up and seeing the hospital sort of fluorescent strip lights it felt like they were screaming into my eyes, and the noise, the sound was just suddenly up. So all my senses were on overload, as it were. So, and I remember saying to Anna, I said, Anna, I've got something to tell you. It's really important. This is really important. She said, I know. She was like trying to calm me, and because they were just about to take me through the theatre, to start operating. And I said, no, you need to know this. He said, we'll talk about it later. I said, okay, So the importance of what had just happened was imminent to me. It was like from that moment of coming back, it was like, I've got to tell the world about this. I was just really, really needed to talk about it with everybody, to share it and just say, look, I've just been to the other side and I've seen it, and it's really quite amazing, and you're all going to love it, and you've got nothing to fear, because up until that point, I realized that we all feared death and we didn't even talk about it. Most people don't even broach the subject, but I was just very keen to sort of pass on the message of what was there.
So what year was this, David? It was like early 2000s.
This was 2006. This happened.
Right.
So
yeah.
And and so I go on.
Well, when you spoke to Anna afterwards, so this NDE happened between, like, she's standing at your bedside and you're looking at her, and then 1 minute you're looking at her, the next minute you're floating in space, and then you've come back and then you're still kind of looking up at her. To her, what was the time frame from you being unconscious to conscious? Did she say? Did you ask her?
She didn't say. No.
Probably a nanosecond.
The one thing she did when I told her about it afterwards, when she came to visit me in hospital, she was a complete captive audience. She listened from start to finish, as most people have been, in all fairness. And in fact, everybody, that's the amazing thing. I thought most people are going to go, okay, but no, most people want to know about it. But anyway, when I told her about it, the one thing she did say to me was that she said, you know what? She said, I just saw your eyes change. Your eyes just changed from being in stress and shock and fear, and your eyes suddenly went into like a sort of calm, sort of serenity, sort of. And so that was interesting that she actually saw that happen to me physically. You know, that I'd gone from all the anxiety to peace.
Wow, amazing story.
Yeah.
So, did you experience much else, any other environments while you were over there? Did you kind of just hang out in space, or did you go?
I didn't actually experience any more. I know that some people do go on to different levels and what have you, but you know, I have to be as close to the story as I can be, well, as I am, you know, and no, I didn't actually go on any further. You know, I guess when I came back, I put so much thought into what had happened, and as I say, I just knew. First of all, I thought, why have they sent me back? You know, what is my reason to have experienced that and come back? There must be a reason, and I've got to find out what it is. And at first, I thought it was just to help other people and stuff. And I'm lying there in hospital, you know, and I can hardly move because my injuries were so severe. And it's interesting because my mother and father would come in and see me, and they would say, my mother would say each day, she said, and she still says it now, she said it's amazing. We come in and see you, and you're glowing, even though you can hardly move. You were just glowing, and she said, she said it's like you're giving out strength to other people around you, from the nurses to people who come and visit you. And it's absolutely true, because that's how I felt, you know. So I figured that, you know, they sent me back fully equipped with a very sort of, you know, sort of knowledgeable, wanting to know more, you know, really inquiring mind, let's say. So I mean, I wanted to sort of really make sure that I took this as far as I could and got it out to everybody. And I mean, the story I'd love to have written the story right from the start, you know, but I'm severely dyslexic, so I could never have written a book. And it was just recently a friend of mine turned around to me, and she said, I want to write a book, and I'd like to write your story. And I said, well, that'd be fantastic, you know. So she's been my ghostwriter, and I've known her for years, so she knows me really well. So we were able to work together and on this project and bring it to the point that we had this. And it's actually her first book. You know, she's had a few sort of medical journals published, but this was something different to her, and so she's amazed, and so am I, that the attention that it's already received. Dr. Raymond Moody, yeah, she thinks it's great, but I said, this is what happened with the symphony. It's the same thing, and I feel like my guides are helping me to sort of take this forward and bring it out to the world. Isn't it?
Definitely guided. So when you were over in that environment, did you have any clue as to coming back and writing classical music, or like was that communicated with you, or
no?
Forgot?
No, nobody actually spoke to me. I still feel now that all the communication I was receiving I was kind of like sort of telepathic, let's say. You know, that you know, it didn't take long for it to come together to me. In fact, it was only the very next day my sister came in just to visit me, and they'd given me this room to myself in the hospital because I was in such a bad way. They prepared it already, you know, and my sister was chatting to me very calmly, and she said, "Is there anything I can get you?" You know, I said, "Yeah, can you get me a little sketch pad and a pencil?" You know, and she was going, "Okay." She was like, went along with it. She didn't know why, and that was because I was so keen to actually start sketching down what I'd seen, what I'd just experienced, because I knew that I'd never done a painting like this before, ever. And I thought, I've got to paint this. And it's got to be big. It's got to be like a Michelangelo. It's got to be a big canvas, you know. And that was my plan from day one, you know. So there was like a telepathy going on there saying, yes, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's just kind of more like a knowing. I know because, you know, I receive guidance, and it comes in so many different forms, visually, telepathically, auditory, and sometimes there's just, I get a download of so much information that comes in a nanosecond, and yet to unravel it, to speak about it would take hours. And so there's like that knowing that you can't explain because it's non-linear.
Yes.
Okay, look, did you paint before, like did you draw before the NDE?
Well, I was always interested in drawing, and when I was at school, and I'd like to have taken that further, but I failed all my academics at school, and so
because you were dyslexic.
There's no way I could. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
But
I totally get it. I was the same. Could draw for days, could dance, could draw, could sing, but couldn't read or write anything.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this is it. And the crazy thing is that even if I'd wanted to get into art school and do a foundation course, as they call it here, I would have had to have had English language, and that they insist on that. I guess it's because of you're learning art history, so you need to be able to do quite a lot of written work. But so those lack of academics just held me up. I was not able to go forward. So I was go on. Sorry.
How old were you when you had the NDE?
I was 46 when I had the NDE.
46. Yeah. And what did you do for work before that?
Well, as I say, I was a musician to start off with, so I was like scraping a living whenever I could out of that. It's never easy to make money out of playing in bands and whatever, But eventually, I went on to sort of the only thing I could do is pick up manual work, and so I was picking up quite a lot of manual work. But I realised I wasn't actually cut out for that. I wasn't that good at it. I was looking around and I was seeing all these other guys thinking they're so much more efficient at this job than I am. This is not for me, but I've got no choice. And so that's the kind of work I was doing. So I was never really in a comfortable place because, it felt like the gears were grinding for me. And that's not demeaning manual workers at all, because they do a fantastic job, and I really mean that. They do. It's I learned a lot watching all that and watching that work. But so it was like that's where I was at. Yeah, that's what. So
I'm getting a better picture of your life. It sounds to me like because of your dyslexia, like academia does not celebrate a creative mind if you don't have the logical thing on tap. And so like me, you're labeled as silly, stupid, dumb, whatever, because you're not like killing it at school, And so I don't know, I just feel like you were probably quite down on yourself a lot for not being the businessman or whatever, and sort of struggling. It just sounds to me, when I look at your life before the NDE, I just see so much struggle and self-judgment, and it's made you a very humble person, which still, even after what's happened in the last few years, is still very present in you. And wow. And so your guides have sort of, they've, because the fact that you were dyslexic, there's no mistake about that. That you were here to use those creative, musical talents and artistic talents to communicate who we are and where we come from, I suppose. And that was the NDE was the wake-up call. Okay, let's have a look at some of these paintings. So you've got this painting of you with the blue over you, and it looks like the sun in the distance, but that's the tunnel of light you were talking about, right?
Tunnel of light.
That's the tunnel of light. Who's the blonde guy with the black t-shirt?
That is the androgynous being that I.
That's the androgynous being. Okay, that's him.
Yeah.
Did he give you a name, or do you? I know you.
No. Yeah, as I say, there was no speech. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a name for him now? You don't have to. You can ask.
I don't have a name for him, actually.
You can ask him if you want.
I will do. Well, as soon as you said that, I said Ariel, but I don't know if that's right.
Ariel. Ariel's an archangel, and the archangel Ariel is here to help people with animals and the earth. There you go.
That's good.
My daughter says her angel's called Ariel as well. And I thought when she was a kid, I asked her, and I thought that was because she'd watched that Little Mermaid thing, who's Ariel. And that was my logical brain kicking in. I shouldn't have judged it. And okay, so there's one of you two on the plinth, but you've kind of looked like you've got blue and purple satin, like you're lying on blue and purple. And then there are all these beings healing you. So that's so who's the dude? Who's the dude next to? I think that's Ariel.
Right. Yes.
Who's the guy with the glasses on that's balding? Like there's a face.
Okay. Well, there's an interesting. That's my grandfather.
Okay.
And the reason that he appeared was because when I came across the Spiritualist Church again afterwards, because I really wanted to find them and talk to them, and I found it by chance. Well, I was able to start walking again, and my sister used to take me out for walks, and we walked down to the river one day, and we walked past. I said, "I've got to find this church. Where is it? Somewhere around here." And then, as I said that, some people walked through this doorway. I said, "This is it. It's here." And it was a Sunday, and they were going in for a service. So they said, "Why don't you come in?" I said, "Yeah." So I went in, and at the end of each service, they'd have a guest medium come along. And nearly every week because I started going for a few weeks, nearly every week that I went, I'd get picked out. I think it's because I was still, a big part of me was still connected. I felt like I got my umbilical cord still attached to where I'd been up in the NDE. So anyway, I don't know, but I was getting picked out most weeks. They started laughing because I was this new guy turned up in the church. They go, "Oh, it's him again," and but in a lovely way. They were, they thought it was lovely, But nearly every week they would. I know grandfather's obviously a common one to be picked out, but they got him. So some of them would describe certain things that only him and I would have known about each other. And I thought that he definitely is there. That's him. So when I was doing that painting, I was painting it, and there was this little space on the canvas which, for some reason, hadn't been filled in. I'd been doing all the background as I was going along, and I thought, and somebody said, "What's going on with that space?" I said, "Oh, I must fill it in." I was just going to just blacken it and stuff, and then I suddenly had the radio on while I was painting one day, and there was this organ music playing, and my grandfather used to play the organ, I remember, and it just reminded me of him, and so I just put him in there. Because I thought, well, I'd been told the previous week by the mother of a medium. She came and sat with me afterwards. She said, "How are you? I heard all about your accents." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And she said, "I'm a medium also, but I'm retired now. But I just got to tell you that on that day, you had a very powerful power animal that saved you from going under that train." And I said, "Oh, I take that with me because something very powerful did save me." The rail police investigated, and they looked at it afterwards, and the head of the whole UK rail police said to me, "We don't get it. You should be dead. You should not have survived that. We've done all our measurements, and everything, and you should be dead." I said, "I know." But anyhow, but she also said, "Your grandfather was a very powerful part of all that equation as well. He instrumented a lot of saving you that day, and he's with you now. He's really helping you and guiding you." So he had.
So what's your grandfather's name?
Harry.
Hi, Harry.
Yeah, Harry. Hi, Harry.
Okay, so there's Granddad, and also in the painting you've got what looks like an Indigenous girl. I think she looks American Indian a little bit, or she could be.
That's right. Yeah, she is. Yes, that's how she looked to me, kind of like
Right. So
American Indian. So.
What's her name?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Yes, you do. What did you get? What did you get when I asked you? First thing.
Oh no, don't.
What did you get?
No.
Come on, don't judge it. The first thought you had when I asked you.
First thought, okay. Well, I don't know if it fits, but I got Kia.
There you go.
I got Kia. All right, Kia.
Can't judge these things. And then on the other side is another woman, and she's looking a little gold. She's got this sort of gold glow to her.
Yeah.
What's her name? First thought.
Well, okay. Well, Amber. There you go. You're saying gold. Amber.
She looks amber. Yeah, she looks amber. Yeah. That's beautiful. And there's the Ariel at the back there. And then there's a couple of people sort of floating in the sky.
The reason I painted them, I didn't actually see those, but I at that stage, when I was doing the sketch in the hospital, I wanted to somehow, because I didn't think anyone was going to believe me, to be honest with you, at that point. I thought no one's going to believe it. So I wanted to have two angels that people could connect with that were literally to show that there was the energy of what was going on. You know, so they are there. So they're not actually beings that I saw. They're just to sort of give people a guide of look. This is where I was.
But what's confusing?
Otherwise, they might just think that if they weren't there, I think people might. At the time, I thought people were just going to look at that and think, he's having some Reiki healing in a special place there. But
don't worry about what people think. People are going to think stuff you can't.
No, I don't care now.
But so how come it looks like you're looking out of a window with bars on it? Like, what's that?
Those were the three grids of white light. Pure white light.
Three grids, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they were shining down on me, and then I could feel the energy from that light was just kind of like coming down onto me, just as much as the energy.
What did the three grids mean?
Well, first of all, they when I looked into them, they meant to me that this was the next stage. That that's when I thought, no, this is the next stage. Looking into those lights, because it felt like it was purity. It was like pure white light sending the energy into me. So it felt like purifying me, I guess. So that's how it felt. It was like a purity is probably the best way to describe what I felt when I looked at this.
Like clearing you, cleansing you.
Yeah, like cleansing me.
All right, so there's another painting here of the rail tracks, the workers in their green outfits, your hand, who's looking a little messy, it's been torn apart. But you're sort of pointing up at someone playing the cello looks like he's in his blue pajamas, or she.
She, yes, yeah.
With blonde hair.
Okay.
What's and a big wave at the end of the tracks? I love this painting. It's kind of gory, but I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
well, it started off that was my second painting that I did after the one we just talked about, and that was like a bit of a healing process for me physically, because I wanted to paint the horror of what had happened, because I couldn't escape that. I'm not inhuman. It was like pretty horrific. So that was my way of processing what had happened on canvas, which was very much a healing process. So what it is first of all, I wanted to show, when I remember seeing, my arm ripped open. Is this okay talking about this, or would you rather not?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Well, but because it was quite beautiful, in fact, this is what's so odd.
Right.
The first thing I noticed was that this sheepskin coat that I've been wearing had been torn to shreds on the arm, and I could see my arm had been ripped open. But I remember just lying there, like looking and seeing all the workings within inside my arm, and thinking, wow, that's amazing. That's how it all works. That's how it looks. It was like having a science lesson, but I was fascinated by it. So I wanted to paint that. I wanted to paint that is what I saw, and try and paint that. It's called The Beauty Within, that painting, because that's what it's all about, the beauty within my physical being. So that was the start of it. But the guys who are wearing all the jackets, they're the paramedics. That's how they look. They jump down on the track with their swishy jackets on, and they were there, just basically saving me and stuff. And then so that they're in it just to show what's going on. They're working on me on the track. And then the meaning behind the tidal wave, again, I was guided to do that. I didn't think it through. I was just painting, and then I just wanted to take you from the darkness into the light, because that's what happened, as I say, as the train had moved on. I'd gone from all that hell and oil and darkness to this beautiful blue sky, and this feeling of being in touch with nature. So the tidal wave suddenly appeared as I was painting, taking you from that light, the darkness, into the light. And the meaning of the girl playing the cello is that I was starting to realize at that point that music was also going to be another medium that I was going to start using to express what had happened. And I was listening to music all the time that I was painting. So music was a very much important part of also my healing. While I was in hospital, I listened to there's one album in particular by Kate Bush. Have you heard of Kate Bush?
Yeah.
And it's actually called Ariel. Wow, what about that? And it's Wow, and it's still the most special piece of music to this day, you know. And I'll tell you what is crazy that she did some dates here a couple of years ago in the UK, the first that she'd done for years, and there was a lot of press about it because they sold out in something like for something like 14 seconds, minutes or seconds. It sold really quick.
Yeah.
They went really, really quick. All these tickets, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to get 4 tickets. And it was like, and I was sent an email. I was given an inroad, and I still don't know this to this day how that happened. But anyway, we got these tickets. So I remember going to see Kate Bush, and it was just the most magical spiritual experience. Hearing all that music performed live, I was in tears throughout because it just brought me back to the healing process in hospital. So yeah, music played a big part. There's also a cat in that painting.
Well, I know, a little puss up there in the corner, because
exactly.
with the little white slippers on, I have to tell you something, looks exactly like my cat.
Oh, okay, great.
Couldn't escape little puss up there in the corner.
Brilliant.
So what's she doing up there?
That cat is called Mushu, and that's a he. Yeah, he's called Mushu, and that's my sister's cat. Right. And on the day when I was about to leave with Anna to see her off at the station, I remember he came into the room and he jumped up on this, like, sort of, it was quite a low ceiling. It was an old house where they lived, but he jumped up on top of this kind of like sort of filing cabinet that was like very close to the ceiling. I thought, what? How did he get up there? You know, and he was just there with his paw dangling down, and he just kept staring at me. And we both said, "Well, what are you doing?" And we both said, "It's like he's trying to say something to me." And so we've never forgotten that, and I've never forgotten it. I felt like he was. He was like he was trying to say, warn me. And he is now. No. He's still around, right? He's like 14, maybe 15 now, and he's like my little soulmate. We know each other. Do you know what I mean? And it's like he had to go into painting because, you know, we talk about it with my sister's family. You know, if ever he jumps up on top of any high cabinets now, she's going, "Oh no, what's going to happen?" You know, so he's quite a psychic cat. You know, so he had to go into painting. So yeah, he's up there warning me about what's about to happen that day.
And you sent me one of a close up of Ariel, who's the dude in the black t-shirt that looks androgynous. Could be a woman, could be a man. You've actually depicted it quite beautifully, because when you look at it up close, it could be a woman, could be a man. Yeah, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. And hopefully you can see in that there's not really a full smile on that face, but you can hopefully sense that there's a smile coming off. That being. I mean, that was, you know, that's what I tried to get when I was painting that. So I wanted. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's beautiful. And then there's the picture of what looks like the sun, but I know that it's supposed to be the light tunnel, but it looks fiery. You know, it's kind of all red.
It is fiery. Yeah, there was. It was very dramatic.
Fiery. It's dramatic.
Yeah. It was very dramatic. Yeah, because you know, it was very. It wasn't like a fire that you'd fear, that you think, oh my goodness, this could you know, be dangerous. It was actually rotating very slowly, and so the flames were just kind of like really slowly rotating, and that kind of, on that one you see there's kind of like a bit that kind of goes off to the left. It's kind of like almost like a tail of fire coming from it. I don't know if you can see that there.
Yeah.
Now, when I was doing that painting, again, that was another piece that I didn't intend. I didn't plan that to go, but it just kind of, as I was painting it, it suddenly appeared. It was just, you know what I mean? It just started evolving into part of that painting. Right. And that was another image that I saw. I'm going to send it to you, actually. I'll find it out. And that Hubble had taken of another part of the galaxy that I'd never seen before. And that looks almost identical. You know, I sent it to my friend that day, and I said, "Look at this. This is how identical exactly it was." So it's remarkable, yeah.
You know, many years ago, I used to teach people a specific healing technique, and this healing technique used to get people connected to their psychic ability. And what's really interesting is that the students that I was teaching at one particular session, we used to give people readings, psychic readings. Some of the best readings I've ever had came from these students that I was teaching. But one of them, we were taking people up to the Akashic records, like the book of knowledge, the book of like our lives. And she was reading me, and she said that she went through this tunnel of fire. And the way she described it is just so similar to this painting.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting to me when I think about it. It's like the light that burns off anything that's not needed. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like when you go through it, it sort of burns off any negativity or doubt, or I don't know. It's sort of that's how it feels. Yeah, before you reach that place where it's all pure positive energy. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's well, as I say, I felt that from those 3 grids of white light. You know, that was clearing out all the negative energy, because I'd got so much negative energy that was in my life at that point, because you know the anxiety levels were getting very high. I was in a bad place. I mean, that's why I'd gone to stay with my sister at that point. You know, she said, you know, I was living in London, and she said, you need a break. You know, come and stay with us. So that's why I was there, you know. So there was a lot of cleansing to be done. And that's great what you just said to me then. That's really interesting, because that really was the main source of power, as I said earlier, which was coming from that. And
did you feel like if you travelled through that tunnel that you kind of wouldn't come back?
I figured that would be the case, because it was interesting, because I actually felt that I was at a stage where I was being prepared for something bigger, for the next stage. I thought this is almost like the departure lounge, if you like. You know, I just felt like I was just there, and all this light coming from above, and these healers were just getting me ready, preparing me for the next stage of what I felt to be death. I mean, I felt I was dead while I was there. I really felt this is it. I've died, but I had no sort of sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm dead. I loved it. I was really happy to stay there. But this is death. This is fantastic, you know.
So what was the point where you came back? Like, did you just find yourself back in your body? Did you think, I should go back? Did you think of something that brought you back? What was happening?
Well, it was pretty much after I'd got that thought that I should look down on my family and check on them. So, and then I just remember bringing my head back around, and that's when I was back. So I didn't want to go back at all. I was really quite happy to stay there. I remember when I rolled my head back over, I thought, well, okay, well, I can't see my family now, but they're going to be fine. They're going to be seeing me soon. That's what I thought. I remember having that thought. I said to myself, well, I'll be seeing them. They'll be up here joining me, and they're going to be enjoying it as well. So there's no sense of guilt or anything that when I was down in hospital, all I felt was guilt. I felt, my mother said to me, I was apologizing. I was going, I'm so sorry. It's always me causing trouble, and I've done it again. I brought trouble to you. And again, no, stop. Why are you apologizing? You know, because it was an accident. It was, you know, I couldn't have been avoided. So,
you know, what I'm thinking is, you said that you were kind of down and out at the time that the accident happened, and then this terrible thing happens. And I'm thinking about your friends and family, thinking, poor David, he just can't catch a break. You know, it's gone from bad to worse. But actually, what this terrible incident that was so horrific was your break, was you catching a break.
Totally. Yeah, I mean,
changed you up. Okay, let's bring you back to earth. You've woken up in the hospital. What's happening? You're sketching. How's the music coming to you? Take us through that journey.
Well, first of all, I have to say, when I was in hospital, I could hardly sketch. The nurses had to prop like this little sketch pad up. It was only like a tiny little A5 thing. And then I've still got the sketches, and you can barely see what I've drawn, but it's just almost like an outline of this first painting. And but it was enough for me to. I was worried that I was going to forget it all, but of course I never have done, you know. And so the music came through the spiritual healing, because when I went into the very first meeting I went to at this church, at the end they had tea and coffee and chat and stuff, and a lady came over to me and said, look, we don't normally say this to people and invite them along, but I can see, looking at you, you could do some healing. And we actually do what's called spiritual healing on Thursday evenings if you're interested. I said, yeah, I'd love to, you know. So I went along, and
this is in the
spiritual
hospital.
healing. No, this is at the spiritualist church. Sorry, this is at the
church.
church that I discovered where I'd seen the medium.
Right.
And yeah, I wish. Yeah. That'd be great. Spiritual healers in the hospital.
Yeah.
Well, they were telling me that they're starting to do that. They are actually starting to do that. So great, we're all moving forward.
Yeah.
And anyhow, so I was having spiritual healing, which is a process which is not too far off that painting, where I'm actually lying down on a sort of like a massage bed, if you like, you know, one of those trestle ones, and then I'd have one or two healers with their hands over me, just like that, and they would heal me, and one or two of them were actually mediums. So at the end, they would give me like short messages. They would say, "Oh, they're telling me," they were giving me, you know, blue light or what have you, and healing light and energy and stuff. And then one week, one of them turned around to me and said, "They're telling me you're going to be writing some music about your experience." I was going, "Oh, okay." So at that point, I figured I've got to go away and write a song, because that's all I'd ever known, you know, playing guitar. I couldn't play guitar anymore because my left arm had been so badly damaged.
Right.
So, but I had this little cheap old synthesizer at home, and I just had that out one afternoon, and I just started playing a few chords on it. I thought, oh, that's nice. I recorded that, and I thought, that's good. I like the sound of that. And I went back to have some more healing, and then another healer who's also a medium turned around to me. She said at the end, she said, she's German, and she said, "Why am I seeing excuse my German accent, terrible there. But I said, why am I seeing a violin laid across your chest? I'm hearing Wagner and Beethoven and Bach." And I said, "Oh, great, I don't know, but I'll take it." And then I went away, and I started thinking, these chord progressions, that's really beautiful, and I thought, maybe this is the kind of the piece of music that I'm supposed to be writing. So I developed it and kept hearing more sounds, and I was hearing sounds that I didn't know then would be like, for example, a French horn came through, and I just thought, this is going to be the piece that I'm supposed to be writing. I've got to write for orchestra. So I'd met somebody who was playing cello in the orchestra, and the local orchestra, and she'd asked me if I would. She'd seen my paintings. She used to come up and see me painting that first one, and you know, and she said to me, "These are really beautiful paintings." She said, "Would you mind if we use one of your paintings for our poster?" I said, "Yeah, of course." You know, so they were doing that. So I got to know the orchestra. I went to their first concert after that, and I told her, I said, "Look, I'm working on this piece of music." I said, "It feels like it could be for orchestra maybe one day." And she actually turned around and said, "Oh, maybe we could play it." You know, I was going, "Really?" And I went away and I thought, I'm gonna work at this. I'm gonna actually get this to the stage and take it to them. So that was my game plan. So I just built it from there, and I was channeling ideas for music, because I'd already understood what channeling is all about through my art, through my paintings, because I'd done quite a few paintings up until that stage, and I was thinking, I was standing back at the end of the day, I was looking at my paintings and thinking, wow, that's not me. I haven't done all this. Where's it all come from? And I was being guided to, you know, to paint, to get the confidence and the ability. It's like a crash course in art, you know, and so I thought the same thing started to happen with music. You know, I was like, you know, I just had this tiny little old synthesizer, and ideas were coming through.
So let's look at your mindset before and after. It feels like before you kind of had some dreams about music and sort of struggled away and kind of thought, I can't catch a break. You know, it's not sort of happening for me. And then after, it feels like there's just one synchronicity after the other, just all the puzzle, it's all falling into place. You know, like no matter where you go, you meet someone and says, "Oh, that's happened that." So it seems like two completely different lives. But let's have how did you feel about life, love, and the universe and yourself after the NDE? Were you kind of floating on cloud 9, or?
Well, I was. I felt what I felt was I felt this incredible charge inside of me. You know, as I say, when I was in hospital, I could hardly move, but inside I was just like wow, I got more positive energy than I've ever experienced in my life. So that has stayed with me. You know, there's the reality of facing a huge accident like that, you know, staring death in the face, and you know, and going through such a massive physical trauma has taken certain elements of me away. You know, it's you know, I haven't got that spring in my step I used to have, and you know, this physically, you know, there's certain elements of me that aren't the same as they were before. But I haven't lost that sort of you know, sort of feeling of oneness with what happened with the universe, and also, funny enough, with animals, as you say. That's interesting you brought that up earlier, because I've got a strong affinity with animals. You know, I used to eat meat before, but I don't. I stopped eating meat. You know, and
Right.
but I also, you know, but just nature itself. You know, there's this like connection. I mean, I've got these 3 beautiful trees right outside my window I'm looking at now, and they're like my friends as well. They're like
Yeah.
sort of, you realize all those elements are so important. Again, it's almost like these astronauts coming back to Earth. One of them actually said, he said, you stand on the dusty old moon, you know, and you fly back to Earth, and once you land, you look around and you think, well, this is heaven. Earth is just like this beautiful, you come back and you see all these amazing colors and stuff, and all around us, and all these greens and blues, and that's what it's like for me. So, you know, there's a sense of that, but there's a sense of wanting to bring that love, that energy of love, and try to sort of share it as much as you can without sounding like a cliche, you know. And so it's very important.
Oh, dang, it's too good. Your accent reminds me of the Beatles. Doesn't he sound like the Beatles? I don't know, do you come near where they came from? I kind of listen to you, and I keep getting glimpses of like
That's interesting, yeah.
the Beatles, and they very much had that same intention through their music to bring love and enlightenment, you know. Not initially. Initially, they just wanted to sing, you know, and get famous, and they did that. And then there was a new desire, you know, like let's heal humanity, sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, that you've got this cosmic Christ too. I'm looking at another one of your paintings. He's floating over some water, and it looks like a halo over his head, but actually it looks like a UFO over his head. What's going on there? Is that painting?
Okay, what's going on there?
Yeah, what's going on with this guy?
Sure. Yeah. Well, basically, this goes back to this is a reflection of my healing sessions. What's going on with the halo there is those are the kind of images that I would see when I was having healing. You know, I'd see these kind of lights coming down, and it was very similar to that. And one of the healing sessions, I actually had this image of Christ come to me, and I just saw this, and I thought, wow, that's Christ. And I didn't say anything about it afterwards. And then one of the healers was also a medium, turned around and had exactly the same thought or vision. She said, I saw Christ stood next to you. And I was going, well, I saw the same thing. So I just thought, I've got to paint this. So I wanted to paint him as I saw him. You know, it's interesting because I think now, whenever I walk into a church, every image of Christ is at his worst possible point, where he's hanging from a cross. God bless him. And it was just like, you know, I know that there's a reason for that, but I thought, you don't really see images like the one I wanted to paint, where he's looking where he's passed on himself, where he's you know, his body's being healed, you know. And so I wanted to paint him as I saw him looking down on me. And he's floating above the river and the meadow, which is just outside where I live. So that's him. I wanted to show him here in my hometown, as it were, so on my home place, you know. And as I say, the halo, I thought most halos you see, they're just kind of like just a fine white line, and that's it. But I thought, well, no, I just wanted to paint what I'd seen in my healing sessions as well, not above him, but just I wanted to combine the two. So that's all about my healing, and also give him quite a massive crown of a halo, give him something big and special. Yeah. So that was the idea. Yeah.
So to me, it looks like a total UFO above his head.
Yeah, that's everyone gets different takes on it. You know, somebody said it looks like a carousel. You know, and,
carousel. Yeah, I suppose everyone looks at it differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so the music. How long was it from? So it was actually 2 years from when you had the accident to you having your first symphony concert.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That's so quick.
so I did so much. It was incredible because, as I say, this energy was inside of me, and obviously, it didn't require a lot of physical work. I mean, at that point, I was still going back into hospital 3 days a week, 3 times a week. So yeah, to have my dressings changed and all sorts. But as soon as I got back home, I was either, basically some friends of mine, they run a health centre, and I on one of my walks, I bumped into them. And they said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And it was at that point when I said I wanted to do this painting, and I said, "I got this big canvas." I said, "But I've got nowhere to do it, so I haven't started it." And they said, "Well, we've got a studio above our place here, and we're closed for the week. We're refurbishing. You can use the space for a week." I said, "Great." And they loved having me there, and I ended up staying there for about 2.5 years, I think it was. And so I was going there and doing all these paintings and painting like prolifically, and then I'd come home and be working on the music. So there was a lot of energy coming out of me, just flowing, because it needed to, and I needed to transform all this energy into something physical, to be able to tell the story. And the interesting thing was that it got, not only were the people came up to me at the end of the concert who were really fascinated about, they'd read about me and they'd heard all about, they'd seen me on the television and heard all about near-death experiences. So it was my first time I'd met people who were kind of likewise-minded about it, or wanted to talk about it. So that was great. And then I was picking up interviews as well, on the radio from it, and so that was really good. And it was quite interesting because there was one guy that interested me. And he was on what we call a drive time show, so it's very lightweight, light-hearted stuff. And they phoned me up and they said, "Would you like to appear on this show? Because we've got one guy who's going to be on the day before you, and he's going to be the scientist who's going into hospitals and photographing people who have agreed to it, who are having heart surgery, and seeing if they notice if whatever they talk about in their ND, if it's accurate to the photographs or whatever it was." So I said, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to come on and talk about it." So I did. And I went on this show, and I remember, they spoke to me just before and said, "You'll be going on shortly." And I could hear this guy talking, and it was all like, "Hey, this is Happy Radio. We're going to be talking to, David Ditchfield. He had a near-death experience, And I thought, "Oh no, this is all wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. The gears are going to grind again, But you know what? I went on that show, and I just started talking about it. And this guy actually turned around and he said, "Look, we've got to talk more about this. We're going to the news now, but this is just so fascinating." And we came back after the news, and he said, "Look, I'm a journalist. I'm supposed to question all these things, but I can't. This is just so gripping what David's saying. We want to hear more, David." So I just thought at that point, it's fascinating that people do want to hear about this kind of stuff. It's I don't know why it's not spread more. I don't know why this isn't kind of all over our media. I mean, it's
I know.
getting...
Look. I know. I used to scream at the television on morning breakfast television because they used to talk so much rubbish, and I used to think, why don't they talk about something worth talking about? but that was a while ago, and things are changing, and that's great that you're getting out there in the mainstream. I don't know how many mainstream people I attract to my show. I used to be on radio and talk to a kind of more mainstream public, but trying to pump out more spiritual, enlightening messages to the mainstream. And I think that's what needs to happen. People need to awaken. People need to remember who they are, their connection. I know, I've been doing the radio media thing for 9 years now. Every time I upload a near-death experience show, it gets so many more hits than any other show I do. So that tells me that people in the West, because I think the East is different, but they're looking to understand that we're eternal beings, that there's life after this life, that I don't know, the baby boomers are getting older, they're all coming up again. And there's so many people dying of cancer and sickness, so people are touched by death. I mean, we're all going to be touched by death. Someone said once, no one's getting out of here alive. So there are people seeking answers to where we go and what happens when we die, and so it's becoming a more of a mainstream conversation, which is fabulous. Fabulous. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Mm. But you know, one of the reasons I put NDEs on the show is because I want people, as you said, David, I want people to understand that we don't have to die to go to heaven, that we can bring heaven to earth. I mean, as you said, when you look at the natural beauty of our world, it's heavenly, right? We live in this paradise. We live in this unbelievable paradise.
Yeah.
And most of us don't appreciate it. And then, you know, big companies, you know, polluting this world. So we need to treat her like it is heaven, you know, and bring that frequency that you are bringing with your art and your music, bring that here into the minds, into the consciousness of humanity. I think that's, you know, your mandate now, right?
I think it is, you know, I mean, because it's a physical way of people being able to sort of look at what's going on rather than just, you know, think, oh, should we listen to this guy or not? If the music and the art is out there, more people see it, they will look at it, and most people seem to be drawn into both elements, you know, very strongly, you know, both the music and the art. When they see it, they really want to know about it. They really want to question it. You know, every time I've talked about it, if people look at the painting or whatever, it's like, or paintings or whatever, they want to know more about it. You know, people who wouldn't normally have gone there. They've actually said that. They've said, I've never really thought about this. I don't really think about death, you know. But now you've talked about it, I realise that underneath I am quite, it's because I fear it. And so I just say, look, there's no fear. Please don't fear death, you know, because there is nothing to fear. It's a really beautiful where you're going to go. And most people are really thankful of that. They go, yeah, that's great. They feel relieved and good about it. And so that's what I'd love, you know, is for more and more people to understand that and to get it. And maybe help them to appreciate this earth around them a bit more, because it certainly has with me. So that would be fantastic, you know, if spirituality starts to, you know, become I think it will, because I've got a lot of faith in this next generation as they're coming through. You know, I just kind of feel that, you know, that things go through waves, don't they? You know, and you know, if you look throughout history,
the kids are awesome, David. Look, I'm up near Byron Bay in a place called the Pocket, and this is heaven on earth. I mean, you should look at my Facebook pages. I've put on, you know, the coast is next door. Like I'm about 15 minutes drive from the coast, and about 10 k's inland. And I go to the beach every day, and the beach is just heaven on earth up here. And and the young people, I was at a dinner the other night with some little babies. There was like a 2-year-old, 1.5-year-old, and then an 8-year-old, brother and sister, 8-year-old and an 18-month-old. And the mother was telling me that the little 8-year-old sends her love and light, and is talking about healing and she said to her, you know, my brother and I made a plan to come in together, you know, and to be, we chose you as our mum, and we made a plan to come in together. And she said to me, this is the mum telling me this, she said, they don't even have the same father.
Oh, wow.
And just the young people just blow me away. They're so tapped in, turned on, tuned in, you know.
Totally,
So beautiful. And there's hope for this world.
Exactly. No, I had the same with my nephew. You know, when he was younger, this was actually before my accident and NDE, but I remember him turning around to my sister. My brother had lost his wife. She died suddenly, and he turned around and he must have only been about 2 or whatever, and he said to my sister, he said, oh, Tess came to see me last night. And she said, oh, yeah. She said, yeah. And because he'd been really upset about it, you know, being this one. And she said to me, oh, don't worry, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. It's really lovely here. And you'll see a tunnel of white light. And that's exactly what he said. And he was 2. And he'd said that. So obviously I knew nothing about NDEs or anything like that. So I've never forgotten that he'd actually said that to her. So prior to all this happening.
He was 2.
So there you go. He was 2, yeah. But but you know, my nephews, they're very fascinated by all this, by what's going on. They're not kind of like you know, they're now in their late teens, and early 20s, and you think that they'll be going, oh, I remember being that age thinking, well, I've got my life to get on with, thanks very much. But they're really fascinated by it all, and they're really interested. They've been to pretty much all my concerts because they really enjoy it. They're really drawn to it, which is very...
Wow, and it's classical music. So how many
it's classical music.
have you had now since 2008? So it's been like it's been 10, 11 years.
Yeah. I can't remember now. There's been quite a few, but there's been 3 that have been actually based on my ND, but there's been other pieces that have been written. I wrote one piece. I was commissioned to write a piece to commemorate the start of the First World War. Right. And but that ended up being spiritual. There you go. I wrote a piece about the First World War, and I started writing it. And then I was reading about how carrier pigeons were used were sent from the UK over to Germany, right. With messages to the guys in the trenches. So they get all their little messages off the carrier pigeons. Right. And the Germans picked up on this and what was going on. So they started using these falcons and letting these falcons go, and then the falcons would intercept the pigeons basically, and stop them from getting the messages through and killing them. And so I wanted to write about that. I thought, that's my story. And what the story became, it was a fictitious story, but it was based on things I've been reading, and it was about this young soldier who goes to war and would think he's going to be brave, fight for his country. It's all going to be great. The reality is that it's not. It's horrible and it's hell. And he's dying as he lays there on the ground as he's been shot. And what he sees is the vision of this falcon flying around his head. So that's the final part of the piece. And that concert, there was actually a representative of the Queen was sent along to it because it was a commemoration of the First World War. And he came up. I didn't realise this was going on, but he came up to me afterwards, and this very smart guy, and he's like, he said to me, he's like a head of one of the heads of the Navy. He's like this real sort of general chap, but he was a lovely guy. And he said, I sort of felt, I'd read the notes in about the falcon. He said, so that falcon, was he like the sort of the angel of death basically? And I said, wow, that's brilliant. Yes. So it ended up sort of again drawing somebody from the other end of the spectrum you would not think would have any spiritual sort of take on it, and he did. And I thought that was really beautiful that he took that on.
So this is what your music's doing for people. It's waking people up. It's like getting them to think, getting them to think outside the box. I don't know. It's speaking to their hearts. It's illuminating their minds. Where can people hear your music? And when's the next concert?
Well, the next concert. Well, I'm writing a new piece at the moment, so I'm hoping to get that performed. Next year time. Well, the book's going to be released. I'm hoping that will come together at the same time. I don't know yet. That's not. I spoke to the conductor of the orchestra recently about it. He said, "Yeah, we want to hear it." And so we shall see. But that's coming on fine. But at the moment, I'm actually remastering my recordings. So the Divine Light, which is the first piece that I taught of, that has been remastered in the studio. So that is on my SoundCloud page. So I can give you the link for that, and people can access it, or they can go to the website and then they'll see the links on there. So that's the first piece I'd really like people to hear at this stage, because it's like that's the very first piece of classical music that I wrote, and it's all based on my near-death experience. It tells a story. It's in 3 movements, and the first movement is about awakening, seeing the being of light and feeling the power of the love, and then the second is the energy of that love pulsating through me, and then seeing the other guides around me and the waterfall of stars. And the final movement is just the euphoric feeling of all that powerful, strong energy coming from that divine light, as I call it, which is like the white tunnel of light, as I said earlier, which I perceive to be the energy of all creation. So SoundCloud or through my website. So
and I'll put all the links, and I'll put some of the images on my webpage with the audio only and the YouTube vid. If you want to go to the webpage, it'll be karenswain.com/David Ditchfield. Dying. We've been talking for about an hour and a half. I could talk to you all day. So what
Me
would
too.
be your message to people from the other side? I don't know. What would you like to sort of end with?
I think the message is the one that I've learned, which is self-love. Learn to love yourself first. It's. I know it's not easy, but that's the starting point. Once you start to learn to love yourself more, suddenly you'll find that you've got a lot more faith in yourself and your abilities in the world, and you're able to give love back to others. So yes, self-love. I think that's what they gave me, because I'd got none of that before. I was just like really beating myself up far too badly,
Beating
because
yourself
I
up.
was struggling in the world.
The thing about self-love is, because we are love, all we have to do is stop criticizing ourselves and we'll love ourselves more. It's like,
Exactly.
it's not, we don't even have to actively like, I love me, I love me, I love me. We just have to stop the criticism, stop the judgment,
totally, yeah.
stop the self-berating. And when you stop criticizing yourself, you stop criticizing others, and love just flows. It just flows because it's who we are, as you know. And
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think it helps you think outside the box as well. It's like, as it has done. I would never have dreamt of writing classical music and getting an orchestra to perform it. But I did. And I have done since. And it's like, it's still a daunting prospect sometimes. I walk into a rehearsal and you're faced by a whole orchestra, and somebody like me who's got no classical training, it's quite. They're quite a daunting prospect. They're lovely people, but they're very serious about their craft. And I'll get questions thrown at me. They'll say, "Well, I've got here, David. I've got on bar 45. There's a semi-quaver, whereas it should be a crotchet, surely." And I'm going, "Oh gosh!" So I have to sort of talk my way around that, kind of thing. But I do it, and I've done it, and that's all down to self-love, which is now giving me self-belief and
self-belief.
And as I say, thinking outside the box, because you realise that a lot of us we just go through life just kind of I know it's a cliche, but we all get on the treadmill and we think those are our things. People walk around. It amazes me now. Things like, I'll be sat with someone and they'll see a fly and they go, I've got to kill that fly. I've got to swat it. I go, why? It's not doing anything. Just let it go. It's just, that's an example. It's just kind of that seeing outside the box. That's not like saying, oh yeah, that's what we've always done. That's what my mother always did. So my father always killed flies. So that's what we do. It's just like, leave them. Let it be.
Absolutely. It can't be what we've always done. There has to be a new way. Yeah, it's interesting because, I've got a neighbour who's Italian, and she's like, but this is what we've always done because this is the Italian way. And it's that sort of thinking that keeps the world stuck. There has to be a new way. And not killing the insects is one of them.
Well, that's it. Well, look now. We're in danger of bees and wasps becoming extinct, and so now it's kind of like, when I was a kid, it was like if you saw a wasp or a bee, it's like, kill it, it's going to sting you, Whereas it's like, don't kill them, we need them.
Bees are such an endangered species. I was at a cafe up here, because in Mullumbimby, a beautiful town called Mullumbimby, and it was that we were sitting outside and there were bees everywhere, and everyone was like totally chill with it. No one was swatting them. No one was just like, the bees were happy, we were happy, everyone was happy. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They only sting you if you agitate them, and it's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Because you're a danger to them, and that's it. So. Yeah.
Oh, David, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been just beautiful, delightful, and enlightening. And no more labouring work for you, right? So the music and the arts sustaining you financially, and it's all.
Well, the labouring work now is all sort of trying to get the message
editing,
out there. So it's working on getting as much of a platform together for the book, purely not for self, about me, about getting my face on the TV or anything like that. There's nothing to do with that. There's no ego involved. It's more to do with the more people that we get to read this book, then the more people will get to look at the paintings, listen to the music, and understand exactly the message that I'm trying to get across.
Well, I'll introduce you.
You are as well.
I'll introduce you to a few other podcasters that have got bigger platforms than me, and we'll get your message out there.
Oh, brilliant! That'd be fantastic. That'd be lovely.
All right.
Well, thanks very much, Karen, for inviting me along. Yeah.
Big love.
Okay. Big love to you. Okay, thank you.
Fascinating, wasn't he? Just fascinating. Loved chatting with David. As usual, when I turn off the recording, we chat some more after the show. So he had a couple of things to say that he didn't say on the show, and that's that he's going to be involved in the second annual online NDE Summit on the 23rd of June. If you're watching this before the 23rd of June, he'll be speaking about new gifts. There'll be a few speakers speaking about new gifts after their NDE, new gifts from the afterlife, with Dr. Raymond Moody and Tricia Barker are putting that on. So that'll be interesting. He didn't give me the link for that, but if you just Google second annual online NDE Summit, 23rd of June, I'm sure you'll find it. And what else was he saying? Oh, he was saying so many things. Yeah, all the links to David's music and art will be on my webpage, karenswain.com/David Ditchfield. And also his website for people listening on audio is shineonthestory.com. But if you go to my webpage, you'll see the link there. Fascinating man, really, just so humble and beautiful and such a lovely man, such a beautiful man. Yeah, I got a real sense of his whole life story talking to him, as I do. That's what I do. When I talk to people, it all's laid out in front of me. The past, the future, all of it. Yeah, so he's got a busy future in store for him, but it's interesting how Spirit puts us through the struggle before it sort of wakes us up. You know, we go through all this struggle, many of us, not all of us, but yeah, we gain humility and compassion, and don't have to die to do that. You just have to have a few struggles. But obviously coming back from that love that he experienced in the afterlife. Yeah, so remember, if you like the shows, remember to subscribe and put your comments in the comment under the YouTube, or send me an email. Lovely to speak to David. Anyway, coming up, I've got some fascinating people lined up, speaking to someone who is an alien here on Earth and what that feels like, a hybrid. Oh, that's going to be interesting, Vivian. And I was saying to David that Pam, this beautiful woman called Pam, I can't remember her last name, is coming on the show in a few weeks to talk about auras and aura colours. And she sees them. She sees the aura colour and your predominant aura colour and what that means. It speaks about who you are when you're shining a specific colour, when you're sort of carrying a predominant colour. You can be one or two, or a clear colour or tan colours. She's really fascinating, and we're going to talk about parallel universes and creating our reality and how we can shift timelines. Oh, it's going to be such a great conversation. Can't wait to talk to Pam. She's coming up in a few weeks. So there's some fascinating people coming up to the show, and if you watched the last talk that I did on the YouTube, I don't think I uploaded it to the SoundCloud. I should, really. Talking about what's happened this year on the show and coming up in the Inner Sanctum. That's our online sessions, online groups, where we learn about our powers of creation, flowing our energy, and how we create our world and a new world. And then the guest teachers that come in, and yet to meet some guest teachers. I should actually invite David maybe next year and the guest teacher. Well, we could talk more about his art. Who knows, in another year what will have happened in David's life. It'll be fascinating to see it all unfold. It's been just one synchronicity after the other to get his music out of him and that artwork out to the world. It's beautiful. It's great that he's on mainstream media and, you know, radio in the UK. So thanks again for watching and listening to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. It's been a joy as always to present this to you. And remember, if you're one of those New World teachers, awakening, emerging New World teacher, or just wanting to figure out who you are and why you're here and what you've got to bring to this world and this humanity, and who you are as a part of the shift in our world, that's what my mob talk about all the time. So come and have a session or a few with me and we'll sort you out. Big love. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.